Route 17, Upstate New York. They call it the gateway to the Catskills. I call it the road that stole my sanity. I'm a long-haul trucker, been driving rigs for nearly 15 years. Seen some weird stuff, sure. Deer jumping in front of my grill, blown tires at the worst possible times, the occasional UFO-shaped weather balloon, the usual highway fare. But nothing, and I mean nothing asterisk, prepared me for what happened last October. It was a Tuesday. I was hauling a load of lumber from Syracuse down to a distributor in Suffern. The air was crisp, leaves were turning, and the sun was starting its slow descent, painting the landscape in that golden, melancholic light. I'd been battling fatigue for the last hour, so I pulled over at one of those desolate rest stops that seem to breed in the middle of nowhere. Grabbed a lukewarm coffee from the thermos, stretched my legs, and admired the view for a solid 10 minutes. Back on the road, about 30 miles south of Binghamton, the fog rolled in. Thick, pea soup stuff that swallowed everything whole. Visibility dropped to maybe 10 feet. I slowed to a crawl, flicked on my hazards, and muttered a silent prayer to whatever deity governs safe passage on asphalt rivers. That's when I saw him. Standing on the shoulder, just beyond the reach of my headlights, was a figure. A young guy, maybe early 20s, wearing a flannel shirt, jeans, and a backpack. He had his thumb out, a silent plea cutting through the oppressive fog. Now, I've got a strict, no hitchhikers policy. Company rules, insurance liabilities, the whole 9 yards. But something about this kid, the lost, almost desperate look on his face, it tugged at me. Plus, let's be honest, I was bored and the conversation would probably keep me awake. I pulled over cautiously. He practically leapt into the cab. Thanks, man. Seriously, thanks. I'm starting to think I'd be stuck out there all night. His voice was young, slightly nervous. He was shivering, despite the flannel. No problem, I said, trying to sound nonchalant. Going far? Just to Liberty. I missed the last bus. Liberty wasn't too far out of my way. All right, Liberty it is. Buckle up. He clicked the seatbelt. Name's Ethan, by the way. Mark, I replied. We shook hands, and the warmth of his grip surprised me. We drove in silence for a few minutes, the only sound the rhythmic hum of the engine and the swish of the wipers battling the fog. Then, Ethan started talking. He told me he was a student at SUNY Oneonta, heading home for a weekend visit. He'd gotten stuck waiting for a ride after a late class, and his phone had died. The bus station was closed by the time he got there. Typical college kid troubles. He seemed like a nice kid. Polite, grateful, a little bit anxious. We talked about everything and nothing, the weather, the upcoming midterms, his favorite bands. He even helped me stay awake, pointing out landmarks I couldn't even see in the fog. About an hour later, the fog started to thin. The road ahead began to clear, revealing the familiar signs of civilization. I could see the glow of Liberty's lights in the distance. Almost there, I said, feeling a sense of relief. Ethan chuckled. Yeah, can't wait to get home and sleep in my own bed. I glanced over at him. He was staring out the window, a faint smile on his face. You know, he said suddenly, his voice taking on a strange, almost dreamlike quality, my mom makes the best apple pie in the world. You should try some sometime. Sounds good, I replied, a little distracted by the road. We rounded a bend, and there it was, the Liberty town sign. I slowed down, preparing to pull over at the next safe spot to let him out. All right, Ethan, almost, I started to say, but when I looked over, Ethan was gone. The seat was empty. The seatbelt was unbuckled. The door was still locked. I slammed on the brakes, nearly sending the lumber load crashing through the cab. I killed the engine, my heart pounding in my chest. Ethan? I called out, my voice trembling. Silence. I frantically searched the cab. Under the seats, behind the dashboard, even inside the sleeper berth. Nothing. He had vanished, utterly and completely, into thin air. I sat there for a long time, trying to rationalize what had happened. Maybe I dozed off and dreamt the whole thing. Maybe I was hallucinating from fatigue. Maybe the fog had played tricks on my eyes. But I knew I hadn't dreamt it. I remembered his face, his voice, the warmth of his handshake. I remembered the details of our conversation. He was real. Shaken, I drove into Liberty and parked at a 24-hour diner. I needed coffee, I needed food, and I needed to talk to someone. The waitress, a friendly woman named Carol, poured me a steaming cup. I told her the story, leaving out the part about the vanishing hitchhiker, focusing instead on my exhaustion and the disorienting fog. She listened patiently, then nodded sympathetically. Route 17 can do strange things to you, honey. I've heard stories. Stories. That word hung in the air. What kind of stories? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated, then leaned in conspiratorially. Well, there's a story about a young man, back in '98, I think it was. College student from Oneonta, missed the bus home to Liberty. He was walking along Route 17, trying to hitch a ride, when a logging truck hit him. Killed him instantly. My blood ran cold. They never found his body, Carol continued, unaware of my mounting horror. Just his backpack, by the side of the road. Some say his ghost still wanders the highway, looking for a way home. I stared at her, speechless. The coffee sloshed in my cup. What was his name? I managed to choke out. Carol frowned, trying to remember. I think it was Ethan Miller. The coffee cup slipped from my grasp and shattered on the floor. I didn't stay for breakfast. I paid Carol for the coffee, mumbled an apology for the broken cup, and practically ran back to my rig. I drove straight through to Suffern, delivered the lumber, and then headed back north, as far away from Route 17 as I could get. I haven't driven that stretch of highway since. I refused to. For weeks after, I was haunted by the image of Ethan, his face pale and lost in the swirling fog. I tried to find some record of him, some confirmation of his existence, but I found nothing. No obituary, no missing persons report, no mention of an Ethan Miller who attended SUNY Oneonta. Maybe Carol was wrong, maybe the story was just an urban legend, but I know what I saw. I know what I experienced. And I know that something unexplainable happened that night on Route 17. Sometimes when I'm driving late at night on some other highway, I catch a glimpse of a figure on the shoulder, shrouded in darkness. A young man with a backpack, his thumb outstretched. And for a split second, I swear I see the flicker of a familiar flannel shirt. I always speed up. I don't take chances anymore. Some roads are best left untraveled, some questions best left unanswered. And some hitchhikers are best left in the fog. I'm telling you this now, because I need someone to know. I need to get it off my chest. Maybe you'll think I'm crazy. Maybe you'll dismiss it as a tall tale. But I swear on everything I hold dear, every word of this story is true. So, if you're ever driving late at night on Route 17, and you see a young man standing on the shoulder, wearing a flannel shirt and a backpack, do yourself a favor. Keep driving. Don't stop. Just keep driving. And if he starts talking about apple pie, floor it.